I am happy we are getting something along the lines of that remake in Sonic Origins. I haven't played it yet, so I'll hold judgment for now. All I can really hope for is that they just don't pull a Colors Ultimate on us. They didn't. Oh boy. Hey, for once timing actually worked out in my favor. Just as I finished up the 3 and Knuckles video, Origins just happened to be released that exact same weekend. I guess my poor sense of scheduling actually paid off. I'm not gonna lie, I was initially hesitant to look at this game because, I just reviewed all the classic Sonic games, and while this re-release looks quality, it's still classic Sonic. My thoughts on them aren't really gonna change that much, at least not this soon after I played them. The added widescreen looked like a bonus, there seemed to be some extra bells and whistles placed here, but I felt like it wasn't enough to dedicate an entire video to. But this version got me thinking, like, it's cool we get to see the same people who remade the other games for mobile and Sonic Mania come back to remake these versions as well as Sonic 3. And then I thought to myself, I haven't talked about Sonic Mania Plus yet. A few years after Mania was released, we got an expanded version called Sonic Mania Plus, which was also sold as DLC if you already owned the game from launch. This version would get a physical release with an art book and everything, but the biggest draw was that we were getting both a new game mode and 2 new playable characters from the series, Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel. I'm pretty sure that most people who bought this game and were new to the series just assumed that these were new characters, but us fans knew better. I'm surprised they were able to get out. Both Mighty and Ray were created for the 1993 arcade game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, which just from looking at footage of it looks like a wild time. Mighty, though, is probably most famous for his appearance in Knuckles Chaotix as one of the playable characters, but this would be the last time we'd see Mighty in the games, and Ray? Pfft, poor Ray, he never made it past the arcades. They made plenty of appearances in the comics, especially when Ian Flynn was writing, and they're great in that. If I had to guess, the only reason as to why these 2 were selected is because Christian Whitehead and Headcanon most likely pitched it to Sega as more nostalgia for them to bank off of. I would not see Sega or Sonic Team giving this the green light if not for that reason. So before I get ahead of myself, I wanted to dedicate just one video to both of these games, as I've already looked at every single classic game on this collection. Twice now. I'm stupid. And personally, I feel my original review of Mania, cringiness aside, I think it does a fine enough job explaining why the game is so great to begin with. So, consider this more of an updated thoughts, if you will. Whereas with Origins, I'm more interested in seeing what was added for the re-release. I originally was going to do 2 playthroughs of Mania after finishing the classic series, but after I finished up my first run as Sonic, I also felt like doing a run as both Tails and Knuckles individually. On top of that, doing a full run of the Encore mode, which in total leads up to 4 complete playthroughs. Can you tell I really love this game? Sonic Mania may have come out 5 years ago, but it still remains one of the best games to ever be made in the series. The love and dedication from the developers is so prominent in every single aspect of this game. The controls feel the best they've ever felt in the series, honestly even a little better than the original games. Graphically, the game is absolutely gorgeous, the soundtrack by T-Lopes is still magnificent, and the original stages made for this game are top-notch and some of my favorite in the franchise. Hell, every stage in this game is designed great and improves upon the ones that were kinda weaker from the classic games. It still surprises me that they somehow made Oil Ocean, one of the weaker stages in Sonic 2, actually fun to play through, and even made its main theme fun to listen to. If they're able to make this stage good, then these are some top tier game designers. The game's biggest drawback, though, is its lack of original content. While every stage is a blast, 8 of the 12 zones are from previous Sonic games. Now, in all fairness, most of the choices were for stages that we haven't really gotten before, a lot of them coming from Sonic CD and 3. Honestly, in my opinion, the most egregious the nostalgia gets is with Green Hill and Chemical Plant being the first 2 stages, when they were already the first 2 stages in Generations, a game that also had returning stage themes from older games. And while that was the entire premise of Generations, it definitely feels a bit more tacked on in Mania. It's a move that I think is pretty obvious was from Sega to push the nostalgia train without any proper respect or thought to how these stages would transition from one to the next. Why else would the plot revolve around a ruby that transports our heroes through time and space? I'll tell you why. It was the only way to have these stages in the game without naming them something different. In hindsight, hindsight, it definitely feels more like a compromise rather than a decision to improve the game's narrative. Also, I'd like to make a quick correction to my original review where I say that Robotnik and the Hardboiled Heavies are working together. They were actually at odds with each other the entire time trying to get the Phantom Ruby for themselves. Why did I not know this in my original review? I went to art school. There were some additional changes made to Mania when the Plus expansion came out, aside from the Encore mode and new characters. The menus got a much needed makeover and look way more slick now. Every stage received a level transition to help make the stages feel a bit more connected, and a lot of them are great. I love seeing the sub from Oil Ocean speed into Lava Reef uncontrollably, or how at the end of Metallic Madness we see the power go out as Titanic Monarch becomes operational. Metal Sonic, I mean geez, his original boss fight was so lame, and now... Well, that's certainly an upgrade. Stuff like that really helps make the whole campaign feel more complete, as this was the devs' last chance to finish what they had set out to do, since apparently Sega had forced them into a really harsh deadline. Now, where have I heard that before?
I know a doctor. You can go see him.
Encore mode is the new adventure added for this game, and it's pretty true in advertising. It's literally an Encore run of the game again, now with new looks for every level. The good ending of Mania shows Sonic being transported through this portal, which acts as a tie-in to Sonic Forces, and considering that, when he returns, Sonic should be saying to himself, well, that was a colossal waste of time, and runs as far as he can from the mediocrity. Lord knows I'm still trying to. Jesus! Encore mode starts us off by going through Angel Island Zone, and probably the best it's ever looked in the series. I mean, my god, the pixel art is so good here. But it's not as in-depth as you'd expect it to be. It's pretty much a cutscene level to introduce us to Mighty and Ray. And I'm guessing that everyone on the team really liked Knuckles Chaotix, as that is a similar capsule you free your first partner in that game. It even uses the same victory chime when you select your character. And the new Metal Sonic boss is directly inspired from the fight against him in that game. Say what you will about the nostalgia pandering, but at least they go for the stuff that isn't immediately obvious or overdone, and my god, they go for broke on it. Selecting between Mighty and Ray clues us into the biggest change in Encore mode, the new party system. Instead of lives, you now collect the game's playable characters to keep in your party, almost like an RPG. That's it, Sonic Mania is an RPG, move aside, it's better than all of you. You can only switch between 2 characters that are currently out, which I kinda get since having all 5 of them out would be pretty hectic. But that's exactly why I'd want them all here. The chaos with all 5 playable characters being available would have been amazing. But with that said, being able to switch between even just 2 characters really does add a whole new different kind of strategy to the game. You now have access to everyone's unique abilities, which opens up the level design something fierce. If you happen to not like the character you have out, you can change the one you're playing as by finding one of these swap panels, or you can reshuffle the whole party by finding a randomizer panel. So you always have ways of changing your characters if you just look around a little bit. It is kind of a shame though that these are really the only worthwhile power-ups in this mode. I mean, we do get speed shoes, invincibility, and the basic shield, but the elemental shields are now kind of limited since Sonic is the only one who can use their special abilities. And instead of life capsules, you now have character capsules so you can add them to your party. Having no lives in this mode does sort of make the rings a little less compelling to collect, as they're now only used for protection. Maybe if you got a random character after crossing 100 rings would have been a good substitute, but that probably could have torn the difficulty in half. When you die, you won't start from the last checkpoint, but rather switch to whoever your partner is. You only get a game over if all your characters are dead, which means you either have to get more continues or start the whole stage over again. This does in a certain sense make Encore mode the game's, well, dedicated hard mode, as the lack of lives does require you to be a bit more careful with how you play, as you can't afford to die as much this time. Although I didn't really have a problem with that on this playthrough, as I don't really die that much in Mania to begin with, so if you're decently familiar with the game as is, this shouldn't be that much harder. And the nice thing is you do get more party members through the bonus stages you access by passing a checkpoint. Instead of Blue Sphere like in the main game, now it's a pinball machine that you can get some extra goodies in if you manage to hit the ball all the way to the top. Not gonna lie, I might like these bonus stages the most. I feel like it's a nice relaxer that I could sort of turn my brain off and play a little bit. But if you want some bonuses with extra challenge, the special stages are back, and yeesh, they're so much harder in this mode. The layouts are pretty similar as the ones in the main game, but now there are so many more pits and spikes to avoid, and the UFO is so much faster now. You need to go Mach 3 in order to catch up. It's impossible otherwise. It's interesting since it does feel like a natural progression to where the original 7 special stages left off from, as if these were special stages 8 through 14. If you want the super modes and the game's good ending, then you'll need to nab these, but good luck trying to get them on one playthrough. I can't do it. It doesn't help that they're already harder, but the special ranges are in completely different locations now, and you need to have some pretty extensive knowledge of the level design in order to find a lot of these. Most of them are not very obvious this at all. If you want the easiest way to get them, beat the game on your current save file, go to Flying Battery Act 1, and there's one right at the start of the level. Just keep resetting until you get them all. I know this is cheating, but I already got them in Mania mode, and it still took me close to an hour to get them all here. That's how many retries it took me. I spent so long here that the music glitched up and stopped playing. I think I've seen too much. Even though you have access to all 5 characters in Encore mode, I mainly stuck with Mighty and Ray for this playthrough. Again, I just did a playthrough with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles individually, so I wanted to give them some attention. The nice thing is that you can play as them in Mania mode if you want, so all grounds are covered. And I'm honestly glad I stuck with them. I love playing as Mighty and Ray in this game. Mighty has this ground stomp ability, which is great for finding new pathways and stopping on a dime if needed. He's also immune to spikes if he's curled up into a ball, which is a really cool detail. He is an armadillo after all, and what better quality to give him than having a thick hide? If you want the high speed you get with Sonic while being able to fly like Tails, then you pick Ray. Being a flying squirrel, he can glide long distances and get some major air. His gliding controls do have a bit of a learning curve. It's very similar to how the Cape Feathered is in Super Mario World. There's a certain rhythm to flying with him, but when you get the hang of it, Ray is a ton of fun to play as. The multiple characters are where you're gonna get the most fun out of, since the stages in Encore mode from a design standpoint are pretty much the same. I mean, it's cool being able to explore certain paths with other characters. If you have Knuckles as your partner, you can access all of his areas and play them with anyone. And Mighty's been given some new areas to discover with his ground stomp, but the design mainly stays the same. The only stage off the top of my head that feels radically different from the rest is Mirage Saloon Act 1. You don't go on the plane anymore, which I'm honestly kind of happy about. This stage wasn't really that fun to begin with. And Knuckles' version was tailored more for his abilities, so this version has some adjustments so that everyone can get through just fine. But let's not kid ourselves, the biggest change in these stages is the way they look. Every zone has been given a new paint job, and they're good. Some of them do look really stunning. Green Hill at sunset is gorgeous. Chemical Plant's cool hues really add a new feeling to the level's energy. Studiopolis takes place at sunrise and is incredible. Priss Garden now takes place at night and is lit up by these large torches in the background. This might be my favorite recolor in the game. Stardust Speedway and Metallic Madness take after their bad future counterparts from Sonic CD, and I thought that was a really cool touch. There are other ones though that I'm not completely sold on, if I'm being perfectly honest. Lava Reef Act 1 looks like they just made the image more red. Act 2 has the crystals change colors, and I feel it just looks a little off. Making Hydro City look like Labyrinth Zone is just gross. And Titanic Monarch, it's Irish?
Woo, I tell you, I'm glad they're including us mix in video games now.
When Mania Plus came out, it ran you for about $30, and I feel that's the perfect amount for this game. Between all the playthroughs with all the characters, Encore mode, multiplayer, time attack, etc., there was plenty in this game to warrant that price. Paying that much for it now, yeah, that might be a bit more debatable, but you can find good deals for this game everywhere, especially on Steam. And if there's one version of the game you should get, it's that one. The modding scene for this game is insane. You get a lot of cool stuff that fans made for this game on PC, and during summer and holidays, the sales are extremely solid. With all that said, Mania on its own is still absolutely fantastic. Going back to it for me felt like putting on a cozy pair of shoes. I knew what to expect, and it gave me that and then some. I don't know if this game will make any detractor of the series feel any differently, since, well, it basically took what worked from the classic games and just adds on top of it. But considering the time this game came out in 2017, and seeing the quality of other games in the series up to that point, I'm just happy we have a product that has some honest-to-God love behind it. Even more than just the way it was designed, the way it looks has a ton of love, the way the music sounds has a ton of love, even the marketing has a ton of love behind it. There were so many animated trailers and shorts based on this game. Sonic Mania Adventures displays that in full blast. There is so much love put behind these shorts. If people wonder why this game was successful, this is why. There is love put behind everything in this game. Do yourself a favor and get it. It's fantastic and deserves the love and praise it's gotten. Now, Origins. I think I can speak on behalf of all of us when I say this definitely intrigued us when Sega first teased it. It was announced in 2021 during a Sonic Central livestream. Nothing from the game proper was shown. All we saw was footage from the mobile remakes of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, with footage from 3 Knuckles that was clearly ripped from somewhere else. I mean, look at how soft this clip is compared to the rest. They did not record the game for this trailer.
The signs were there, we just refused to believe.
That looks so stupid. But from what was said during the livestream, all of the games will be remade from the ground up in widescreen, plus a few extra features. Now, Sonic 1 and 2 being re-released is nothing new. Those two are on everything. But Sonic CD hasn't had a proper version since its release in 2011, which wasn't a problem for PC and mobile users, but on consoles, it was stuck on PS3 and Xbox 360. So to see it brought forward again was pretty nice. Sonic 3 and Knuckles though, this would be the first time, I want to say since Mega Collection Plus, that the game would be made available while still being able to lock the two together. Any other re-release of the game would either keep the game separate or just not include them at all. This seemed like the chance for Sonic 3 and Knuckles to get the remake on par with the other games it deserved. Alongside that was a proper announcement for Sonic Colors Ultimate, a full HD remake of the original Wii game. So we had an HD version of one of Sonic's most popular games, and a collection of the classics in widescreen. Colors Ultimate was set to come out later that year, and Origin set to come out sometime in 2022. Everything seemed just fine. And then Colors Ultimate came out, and if my first reaction was anything to go by, oh god, it's dead! What the hell was this? Colors Ultimate is a bad freaking version of the original. There's plenty to go into whenever I get to talk about this game in its own video, but to put it in short, the game looks worse, the cutscenes weren't scaled up properly, most of the remixes were inferior to the original counterparts, it was filled with bugs and glitches that could sometimes cause seizures, and it crashed way too many times for it to be a coincidence, with the final crash of my playthrough corrupting my save data. A near 100% run of the game was lost because of this. And when we saw the kind of management Sega had with the team that made this version, you can see why it was this bad. There was no quality control, and it was rushed to make a deadline when it clearly needed more time to cook. I was so baffled when I lost my save data that I went on a solid 10-minute long rant that my girlfriend thankfully recorded. I was at that much of a loss with this game. And during that rant, I realized something. Oh my god, there's gonna be like a goddamn collection of the original 3 games coming out? If Colors Ultimate's this bad, what the fuck are the ports of those games gonna be like? Needless to say, I was worried. If a port of Sonic Colors, one of the simplest games in the series, was this poorly made, a version of the classics this bad would probably blow up the earth. And the closer we got to launch, there were even more concerns that came up in the fandom. Apparently, the music composed by Michael Jackson in Sonic 3 was going to be replaced by remixes of the prototype tracks for that game. And I think one of the biggest blunders by far is when Headcanon, one of the main developers for the remakes of the classic games, had to reassure people that the most they were doing for Origins was making a version of Sonic 3 using the same engine that would be used to remake the other games. The other remakes they made would be in the game, but any changes made to them were apparently done by Sega and Sonic Team proper. I read this and was terrified that Sega had pulled some bullshit that made those versions worse. And after hearing even more of what it was like for Headcanon to work with Sega and how it was a poorly managed, stress-induced rush fest, I didn't know what to think of this version. The trailers looked good, the new animations were pretty cool, but there was some hesitation when it came to purchasing this. I still got it, though it was more so that Headcanon's work wasn't for nothing, but I don't feel great about giving my money to Sega after all this. Now, with all that in mind, I got the game and I played it, and it's fine. It's Sonic 1, 2, CD, and 3 and Knuckles. Okay, in all fairness, my worries were thankfully subsided once I started playing, and just to clear the air, this is a perfectly fine version to play the classic games on. This isn't anywhere near Colors Ultimate territory. Everything ran well, I never ran into any major bugs or glitches, everything seemed to work here just fine. If anything, there's some really cool stuff in here. The opening animation is fantastic, it really falls in line with the same style Mania Adventures had. Every game received an opening and closing animation, which was really cool. There's a museum area that has a sound test, unlockable cutscenes, including Mania Adventures, some cool artwork. There's a fair amount here. It's not a lot, but you know, it's cool to see. I like the menu setup and how every game is given a full render of the island it takes place on. It's not super fancy, but it's cute and has some fun Easter eggs to find. Mission mode is something that's been added to each game, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't spend much time on this. I really didn't enjoy it that much. From what I played, it was just a couple of weird challenges in each game that you had to beat in a certain amount of time. It's harmless, but I don't see myself completing it anytime soon. It's really only here as a way to get more coins to purchase extras in the museum. Coins are something new added, as in the anniversary mode of each game, there are no lives. Instead of collecting 1-ups or getting an extra life by collecting 100 rings, you get a coin. This could be seen as a way of making death in these games less of a punishment. I see them as harmless. The most intrusive they ever get is that you can use them to retry the special stages. As long as you have the currency to spare, you can try as many times as you'd like. Again, this may neuter the challenge a bit, but you don't have to use them. You can deny it if you so desire. It certainly made things easier for me while playing. I was not in the mood to load load up a save file constantly just to try these over and over again. That said, since these games are the remakes from mobile, the special stages are now probably the best they've ever been. The rotation in Sonic 1 is so much smoother, making it easier to make jumps. I've already mentioned that getting the UFOs in Sonic CD is way smoother here, and oh my god, the half pipe is so much better now. I'm still not the biggest fan of these special stages in general, but compared to the original game, these are so much easier on the eyes. Blue Sphere got a bit of an upgrade, but there wasn't that much to improve on anyway. The most that was done here was that the rotation felt a bit smoother while turning. Although this was the only time I noticed a peculiar visual glitch in the game. Whenever you use the gold sphere to launch upwards, Tails doesn't go with you, he just drags his ass across the red spheres. What, do they not count with him? This looks so goofy. The one thing that piqued my interest was the game's story mode, which seemed to have you play through all 4 games back to back. And yeah, it's exactly that, and in my opinion, it's probably the best way to play these games. The order did throw me off a little bit. We start with Sonic 1, then go to CD, and then we play 2. The only reason I say it's weird is because CD is such a graphical upgrade from the first 2 games that going back to 2 afterwards just felt a little strange. In terms of the games themselves, well, it's the mobile remakes now optimized for consoles. The widescreen really does go a long way. I feel like I can see what's coming much easier now. The spin dash has been added to every single game, so now Sonic 1 is paced a little better. Both soundtracks are still available for Sonic CD, and probably the biggest change is that the drop dash from Mania has been added. It's not as good. I don't know if it's something that was just coded wrong or if the collision detection wasn't designed for this move, but you get way less speed and distance out of it here compared to Mania. I mean, it's not an integral thing to have in the game, like I never really used it that much outside of like a select few areas, but at that point it makes me wonder why have it here if it's not going to be that great. Now with that in mind, did my feelings change at all while playing these games in this way? Well, yes and no. I still feel the same about Sonic 1 as I did in my revisit. Having the spin dash here is nice, but it only goes so far with the level design being the way it is. Sonic 2 was still great fun, I really didn't feel any different after playing it here. Sonic CD though, I swear I have a different reaction every time I play it. The first thing that stood out to me was, oh yes, they put the animation back into 4x3. This looks so much better now, and the upscale is really high quality and does wonders for this animation. For this playthrough, I tried to play the games a little differently to how I normally would, just for the sake of variety, but I ended up going back to the basics, except for this game. This time, I tried going after all the robot generators alongside the time stones, and I surprisingly had more fun. Granted, it was made a little easier since the drop dash now allows you to keep your speed, which makes time travel a complete non-issue, regardless of how unintentional this probably was. This run wasn't as fast as I would like it to be, but there was something weirdly relaxing about exploring the levels this way. Not being sure what I was going to find or knowing where the robot generator was really added to the experience. For the first time, I really got a chance to look at the good future versions of every stage, and good lord, they're beautiful. It actually looks like a world. It has some steampunk mixed with nature. I was getting Castle in the Sky vibes looking at some of these stages. It helped too that the Japanese soundtrack was on as well. This version is fantastic and it really fits these levels. And to somewhat retcon something I said in my original review, I thought the American OST was really boring. It's fine, it goes for more of a chill rock vibe, but I'm sorry, it has nothing on the Japanese one. So in general, yeah, I'd say I enjoyed Sonic CD way more on this run than I did previously. I'd still say it's not as good as 2, 3, or Mania, but now I think I can enjoy it on a ground closer to those games. Now we come to the big one. Sonic 3 and Knuckles was the one I was most curious about. Again, this is the first time this game was ever re-released in a quality similar to the other remakes, and I'm happy to say, from my experience anyway, it definitely feels like it's the one that got the most love. There are more little differences in this version compared to any of the others, whether it's more frames of animation in cutscenes or smoothing out certain movements so it feels less jittery. There are so many additions that people have wanted to implement into this game for years. Big Arms is now back as a mid-game boss fight, which is really cool to see, and it gets followed up by an additional cutscene showing the Death Egg fall into Lava Reef. Aside from Sonic CD, this game probably got the best treatment visually. Since the environments always had a ton of detail in them, the jump in quality helps them pop a lot more here. The more I look at this game though, it's kinda clear to me that the basis for this remake came a lot from Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited, a mod of the game on PC that basically does everything good about this version and even more, including stuff that Sega would never add since it so heavily changes the foundation of the game, like changing the level order back to what it was originally supposed to be, having the ship in Angel Island actually be a threat, customizing the soundtracks. It's a lot of stuff that rearranges the game's code, and I understand why it wouldn't be included. Though I'd say Angel Island Revisited is still the better version of Sonic 3 between these two, as it does have all the advantages that the other one doesn't, and it also doesn't have the biggest weakness of Origins: the music. As I mentioned before, any of the tracks that were speculated to be made by Michael Jackson have been completely removed. Knuckles' original theme and the old Act 1 boss track are completely gone and are replaced with their counterparts from Sonic and Knuckles, which is perfectly fine. That's been the case for the game since '94. But even the level tracks, Carnival Night, Ice Cap, and Launch Base, have been replaced by new versions of their prototype themes. I don't know when I'll ever bring this up again, but the first time players ever got to hear these tracks was in the Sonic & Knuckles collection for PC in 1996. Every song in this version was composed using MIDI files, and they sounded terrible. It sounded like something out of GarageBand. This game is where we first heard the prototype themes, and we wouldn't hear what they originally were supposed to sound like until a few years ago when Sonic 3's real prototype leaked online, and those tracks were there, and they sounded pretty damn good. On original hardware, they sound so much better, and you'd think they just used those.
Again, the doctor is available.
They did not. They instead had longtime series composer Jun Sonoy remake those tracks. Now, I love this man's music, and his contributions to this series have been nothing short of genius. But they have to stop making him do stuff with Genesis sound. Jun's music always worked best with real instruments: guitar, bass, drums. As long as he can touch them, he's fine. His ability with synth isn't bad, but I really think he doesn't know how to use the Genesis sound card properly. Granted, not many people did, but the ones who can are still working as musicians, so I don't know why he didn't use them. It's a shame because I actually prefer the prototype version of Carnival Night. The Jackson version has that funky bass and percussion, but it really used too much for me to like it. But Jun's version of this track sounds so depressed. Just listen to them back to back. Ice Cap and Launch Base, to be fair, we're fighting an uphill battle. I'm not a big fan of either prototype track, at least compared to the Jackson versions. Ice Cap sounds like it's trying way too hard to be happy, and Launch Base sounds so boring. Again, still better than what Origins gave us. And I guess that does bring up my biggest problem with Origins as a whole. The additions that were clearly made by Sega only seem to detract. I know the music thing was something they couldn't win in all fairness, just due to legal reasons. It's stuff that on paper sounds fine, but in practice doesn't seem that thought out or just downright lazy. Like, why is it that for Sonic CD, the new animation abruptly cuts to the old one with no transition? I know I praised keeping the aspect ratio intact, but if you're gonna play a new animation that isn't formatted the same way, the least you could do was have a stylized crop on the side so that it doesn't feel as jarring. Another weird thing is that the credits for each game play as you beat them in story mode, which, if I'm being honest, just kind of feels like an oversight. The whole point of playing in story mode is to play what feels like one continuous journey. And you sit through 4 credit sequences before the ending. I would have preferred if after the final cutscene there was a mega credit scene that combined all of them in a cool way. It's a little thing, but it does detract. I'll preface that having the remakes of all the games would have been enough incentive to purchase it, but if you're going to add stuff, then go all the way with it. Mission mode is cool in concept, but if none of the missions are fun, then why would I do them? Having the drop dash can make playing the games more fun, but if it's more of a hindrance, then why have it at all? And on top of that, I swear something is wrong with the jump in Sonic 1 and 2. If you jump out of a spin dash or a roll, you can't control your jump in midair. You can control your jump fine when you just run and jump, and you can even move when you spin dash jump in CD and 3, so why is it a problem here? And speaking of CD, the game defaults the soundtrack to the American version, and if you play story mode, you can't change it there. You have to exit out, select Sonic CDs separately, change the music, and then resume story mode. Why not just have it in the menu? Each game now has a mirror mode. Is that cool? What's so special about this? It's just flipping the game. Anyone can do that. See? Every game has an original mode alongside anniversary mode, the latter being the widescreen remakes, and the former presenting the game in its original 4x3 format and including lives. You'd think that these would be the original ROMs of each game for the sake of preservation, or as a way for people to play the original games in one package. but it's not. They are just the remakes presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio and have lives. They try to hide it by removing the drop dash in every game, but Sonic 1 still gives you the spin dash. Like, that wasn't in the original game. The special stages are the same updated ones from the remakes, so you can choose what type of spin dash you want in Sonic CD. The remixes are still in Sonic 3. I know it seems trivial to be complaining about this, as these are honest improvements to the game. But with that in mind, why not just play Anniversary Mode? These versions offer nothing of value outside of having a square aspect ratio and lives, which in my opinion is not worth playing a very similar version of the game. I would have much preferred having the original ROMs of each game so that they could have something resembling what's supposed to be the original versions. Hell, CD's original ROM hasn't been released since Sonic Gems Collection back in 2005. That would be cool to see. The original print is really difficult to get nowadays. Again, if this wasn't here, I probably wouldn't be bringing this up, but if the fact they included a mode touted as original mode that was supposed to give you the ability to play these games how they were originally made, leads me to think that these would have been the original versions for people to experience. Is this collection good? When I ask that, I'm referring to the entire package. The widescreen remakes of each game are fantastic. These are probably the best versions of the games to this date. It's clear that Christian Whitehead and Headcanon, just like they did with Sonic Mania, put everything they possibly could into making these versions. The ability to play as Tails and Knuckles in each game, the re-implementation of Hidden Palace Zone in Sonic 2, the fact that 3 and Knuckles was given every ounce of love and care they could, are elements that really shine through. It's just a shame that they're all part of what's an otherwise kind of lame package. If these were not the remakes and were just straight ports of the games alongside everything else included, this would be such a lame buy. Sonic Mega Collection came out in 2002 and is still to this day the best Sonic collection ever made. On top of having all the games in their original forms, there were more games to unlock, a ton of extras that were more than just music and art. They had comic book covers from issues that were released at the time, alongside an in-progress version of Sonic Heroes intro. On top of everything, the presentation was great and it had one of the best damn tracks in the series. But imagine if this collection was just 4 games, some music, and some art. Wouldn't it be kinda lame by comparison? Origins only offers that much content-wise. It's great that we have the remakes of these games, but outside of that, you have an incredibly weak lineup that offers less than a compilation that came out 20 years ago. If you are gonna get this, then do 2 things. 1, wait for a sale. Right now it's going for $40, and that's more than Mania at launch. I'd say 30 or hell even 25 is probably your best maximum to go for. And second, get it on PC. Why? Mods. Literally, the first thing people did when this game came out on Steam was mod the Michael Jackson music back in. That alone is worth getting that version. Plus, considering how much mod support Mania has gotten, it's only a matter of time before we get some really wild stuff here. So to recap, get Mania Plus. It's fantastic, and approach Origins with caution. It's 4 great games bundled into something that just doesn't do them justice.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's about all I got. Like, oh, I don't really know how to end this. Hold on 1 second. Come on. Hey, M.
Yeah.
Am I a loser for liking Sonic?
Yes.
Okay, good to know.